economic, and social recovery in Charlottesville, Virginia, and communities across the country. Thank you to the United Way of Greater Charlottesville, to the University of Virginia, and the Virginia Tourism Corporation for their support in bringing this program to life, as well as countless other partners and collaborators in our community and beyond. If you missed a keynote conversation this morning between Simone Sanders and Ben Allen, we encourage each of you to check out our YouTube channel, where all of these incredible conversations will live on. With that, let's bring on today's panel, Ascension, joining together to rewrite the code. I'm going to kick it over to Senior Executive at TMI Consulting and a hero for our team, Sarad Davenport.
Thanks, Ben, and thanks to all of you today for joining us today. Looking forward to this panel. It's been a lot of anticipation. I had a conversation with Ben several months back about what's going on, who's doing amazing things, and this concept of Ascension came up, and who's innovating at a high level and taking the community to new levels that have never been seen before, and who can offer insight to the rest of us who are in the workplace and the community in general. And these wonderful individuals came to the top of that list, and I'm just excited about having a conversation with them today. And I don't want to belabor the point, so I want to hear from them. I want you all to hear from them, but I'll go through and just kind of give their names. We have Sahara Clemens from Sahara Clemens Originals. We have William Jones from Prolific Run Crew, and we also have, for the purposes of this conversation, we're going to call them Lisa Woolfolk. And I always say doctor. He's like, call me Lisa. So I'm going to do right by that today. And the way we're going to start today is I'm just going to open up with, kind of an open platform for these folks to kind of tell you a little bit about what they do. And we're going to start with Lisa. And I'm going to ask Lisa to, tell us a little bit about the Stitch Please podcast and kind of the whole Black Women Stitch movement that you have constructed. As a way of introduction, tell us a little bit more about that and you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be here. I'm so glad and honored to be on this panel. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you. Black Women Stitch is the sewing group where Black Lives Matter, and the Stitch Please podcast is an extension, the official podcast of Black Women Stitch. And Stitch Please podcast centers Black women, girls, and femmes in sewing. Now, this might sound like a very niche type podcast, which I believe it is, but it reflects the larger need for Black women, girls, and femmes to see ourselves, to be centered, to build community with one another and among one another. Black Women Stitch, in its advocacy and its instruction, is not intending to be a diversity and inclusion project. I have no interest in either one of those things. What I am interested in is telling a story about and alongside, for, by, and with Black women, and beginning and ending there. And so this is something that I think is important, and it's a good thing that I feel fortunate to have been able to model, and other folks have benefited. I hear lots of feedback about how the podcast has been supportive of folks, and people enjoy listening and learning, as well as from the Black Women Stitch platform as a whole. So it's been a very illuminating process for me, but I started out with the objective of knowing what I wanted to do because it wasn't there. It was just not there. And so to kind of craft a community that is based in creativity, but also is also committed to racial justice and Black liberation and radical self-love. These are things that all work together in how we operate as a project.
Thank you, Lisa. I just added into the chat, someone, Adrienne Dent.
Oh, hi, Adrienne.
Added a link.
She's super cool. She's an artist as well.
Awesome. Adrian added a link to the podcast. And just before we move on, I want you to tell us, how many downloads. So many people, some people don't know, but could you, emphasize that so people know that this is big.
It's been wonderful. The podcast started in September of 2019, and at the end of 2019, I was trying to get at the end of 2020, in 2019, I was trying to get 10,000 downloads, and at the end of 2020, I was like, okay, hey y'all, check it out. At the end of 2019, we had 10,000 downloads. Wow, right? Amazing for just 4 months of podcasting. At the end of 2020, I was like, wouldn't it be amazing if we could get 100,000 downloads? That would be like 10 times the amount that we started with. Wouldn't that be great? And at the end of the day, we ended up with 125,000 downloads. So we ended up with 100,000 downloads in the course of 2020 on top of the 20 that we'd started with. So that has been great. I know download numbers don't tell the whole story, but they tell, I think, an important one. And this is telling the story of Black women in sewing, Black women who love to do sewing, who might not even know anything about it, but understand it as an ancestral craft. And so providing these spaces for Black women to thrive is a priority for Black Women Stitch. And the podcast works hard to reflect that same priority.
Thank you for lifting
And
that
I didn't think anybody would listen. I thought it would just be my family, but not my children, because they had told me to my face that they would not listen. So I thought that maybe my mama would listen. I would certainly listen over and over again. And then maybe my husband would download some, but I didn't think anybody else would know about them, just me. And I was happily surprised. And Sahara has been on the podcast, and her episode is actually one of the top episodes. I don't know if I told you that. Your episode's like a top episode. So it's been really wonderful to connect with community members and over the show as well. So
great. Thank you, Lisa. I want to shout out Ahmad Hawkins. Ball Hawk is in the room, and he's shouting out peace, everyone. So I want to shout him out here today, and we're going to shift over. Also, before we go to Sahara and then inevitably to Will to chime in here, I want everybody to know this is a dynamic. I want this to be dynamic. So if you have questions for the panelists, just send it to me, and I'll try to work those in. We will have some time for questions at the end, hopefully, but get those questions in, and we'll try to integrate them so they're timely and aligned to like some of the comments that are going on at the time. So with that said, I want to shift to Sahara, and Sahara, I want you to talk about how long you've been doing art professionally. I know you've been doing art a long time, and how it kind of led up to that point. And what are some places that your art has been displayed or exhibited? And just, talk generally about your approach to art and innovation in general.
So I am an artist. I am an activist, and I am now confidently adding dancer and performer to the list of things that I do. And so, I think that my approach to art is really centered around, or it started looking at the intersectionality between being a woman and being Black, and also just my love of fashion and apparel, and how those things kind of mesh together in creating works that really highlight Black women in these pops of color and these designs of these clothings that I work into the paintings themselves to create this holistic narrative of lifting these people up in a way that I feel like hasn't been shown in this particular light. I would say, I don't know, I guess professionally is a word I've yet to kind of ponder in terms of when I frame my artist journey. But I would say that it has been, I guess, several years when I started showing at gallery spaces, when I would say that I particularly went to this place of calling myself an artist and doing things with more intention. I still continue to explore different facets of the skill set and what I do and how I approach art. But I feel like the themes remain. I am definitely trying to explore, I think, outside of even the Black woman narrative and looking more into the Black male narrative as well. And so just tapping into different things right now that I'm exploring, I think will be interesting in the future of my work. But yeah, that is basically what I'm currently thinking about right now.
Awesome. And, you know, without like revealing your age so much, I want to give people a frame of reference so they know that this is intergenerational. Can you tell us where you are educationally? That may give.
Yes, I am currently a sophomore attending Rhode Island School of Design in Providence.
Very nice, very nice. So, you know, some of us have known Sahara since Sahara was a small child. And I would say, you know, I think that part of the work that we have to do in Charlottesville and beyond is to really unearth this genius and dare I say prodigy that exists, you know, and has been overlooked for generations. And I think that, you know, if we want to talk about workforce, then I don't think that we're mining the community for the genius that exists. And Sahara has certainly arisen and materialized as one who we can recognize that genius has been able to kind of move to the top, and we have to continue to mine it and unearth that genius that exists within the community. So we're just glad that Sahara's here today. Now I want to shift over so we can hear from, you know, my good friend, my brother Will Jones, and we've seen your group and all of the people that are involved. We've seen the Prolific Run Crew featured in the New York Times. You know, that was a big splash. Oftentimes, Charlottesville doesn't necessarily get good press in some of these national publications, but you know, the Prolific Run Crew was a bright light, and other national media organizations like running magazines recently did a feature on you all from this marathon that many of you ran and the whole crew participated in. And just to set it off for the Prolific Run Crew, tell the people who might not know about kind of like the origins and the conception of the Prolific Run Crew movement, and like kind of what really set it off, and like anything you know kind of would like to share.
Yeah. One, thank you, Sarad, for that question and that introduction. Salute to the ladies that's on here. I wanted to ask Sahara a question about what she said that she was going into, and I didn't want to forget it. So I do want to hear. She said something about Black male, I thought she said. But I just wanted to put that in there. Yeah, so thank you, man. I'm really thankful to be here. I think that this is important for our community to be able to like get on stages like this. So I just want to thank Time for having us, having Prolific Run Crew represented here today. It started just from running. Honestly, I never really paid attention that running was like in there the way that I understand it to be in there now. But in my journey to Virginia, I stopped in Maryland for a week or two. But when I was there, I got to see Black people living really healthy lifestyles. And part of that was running. Like they were just, for no reason, running on the street. And that seemed really weird to me. Because most people that ran when I grew up was like either some sort of amateur boxer, or usually, you know, nobody, like nobody ran. So, but I did get to see my grandfather run. And so that was important to me. And then in Maryland, I got to see healthy Black people running. And then when I came to Charlottesville, I didn't see it at all. And so when I opened up my shop, when I was in the first shop that I worked in on Cherry Avenue, I was in the community. And so I got to see the community a lot, just going to work. But when I opened up my first shop, I moved out onto 29. And being out on Emmett Street, I was a little more disconnected. I was only seeing my clientele, but I wasn't able to like just see the young boys walking down the street and stuff. So unconsciously, I just like, to fix that, I just would go out at night, park at First Street, and I would just connect all of the hoods. I would First Street through 6th Street through Garrett, and I would just run this route. And one day I took West Bellamy on with me, and it whooped him. And he was like, man, this is dope though, because I live in Charlottesville and I know these communities, but I've never run through them. And so from there, it was a goal to just let our people see us, to be seen and to see them. And so it was cyclical for me, because I wanted to be in touch with I would have grew up in those neighborhoods had I lived in Charlottesville, had I been born in Charlottesville. And so it was important for me to stay connected with my people in some way, because, we don't want to live there and still be subject to what we're trying to change. And so you got to figure out creatively, how do you get there, but not, because you can still become subject to your old personality and your old ways. And so this is unhealthy for you to stay in certain situations too long. And so that was my way of trying to figure out how to go in and get out. And so running was just a way to do it. And then after long, we just started inviting people. I work in a barbershop, so I would invite brothers to come out and run, yo, y'all want to do something? Let's take care of ourselves. And I would invite brothers so many times that some of them just came. Littles would come. We had some faster guys that would come. I don't know if you know Lil Jabril. His mom, Leslie, does hair in the city. And so those type of cat, like Jabril, would come out and he would run really fast. And so he was kind of intimidating people a little bit, but we would still wait for everybody and we would cheer everybody on. And so I think it just created this wave. And then when COVID hit, everybody was looking for some way to get together. Everybody was needing some sort of community. And then when we posted our videos and you see us amped in the morning at 6 o'clock and people are having a good time. And then you just get to hear how people share the impact that it's having. I think it just exploded, man. And I think white people were really looking for something to do with their energy, to help answer some of the injustice issues that were going on. And to put their energy somewhere to better learn about the community that they don't know. And I think this Black-led run group just fit, because they run and it made it not convenient. I don't want to use the word convenient, but it gave an opportunity for them to do something that they already do and then come to something that's led by Black people and just get to experience how we do things. And so I think it just worked really good. And then, we really have been addressing real health stuff. We've been helping people with their mental space and with their courage and heart. And, it's been real stuff happening. And so I think that's really just what caused it to explode. And I think Charlottesville is now really starting to hear about the life impact that it's been making.
Yeah. And, so to connect this back to the overall theme, the classroom to the boardroom, it's kind of timely for America, Charlottesville, everywhere to really understand that this type of innovation happens when you're truly inclusive, right? And there is a space for Black people to be able to truly participate in the community and society and lead, right? There is return on investment in your businesses and your corporations and your community when you really understand that there's value. And Will talked about it a little bit. And, you can go into W.E.B. Du Bois and this dual consciousness, of having to have a complex reality. Complex reality can create innovation. And in America, Black people have had a complex reality and continue to, and that innovation has not been mined in the workplace, elsewhere, in such a way that it could help us all. There's some things that just because of the complex reality that Black people have had to live in America that can be helpful to America, right? So, thank you for sharing that, Will. I just want to open it up because I know that, Will, you had a supported a follow-up question for Sahara. And I know, y'all might not know, But Lisa, as I'm calling her today, is also a professor. So I'm always interested in how Dr. Woolfolk contextualizes some of these.
Listen. I did not come here to work.
Okay, my bad.
So, cause they aren't paying, I'm not getting my work rate for this event.
Oh,
So, let's not be asking me work related questions.
got it. Y'all heard what Lisa said, so we're gonna mind that. So, yeah.
I love what Will was saying about the thing that strikes me about the running group, as well as like the sewing group. Some might say, well, I don't understand why you might need to bring race into it. White people say this kind of thing all the time. Don't bring race into it, because for many white people, their race is always optional. And so, but for us, you know, Black people have never been able to live in America with our Blackness being optional. Right. And so one of the things that I think is so beautiful about the Prolific Run Crew as a Black-led event or a Black-led project is exactly as Will said, it's like what you're doing already, but you can also be fortified in ways that will benefit in ways that are beneficial to your life, but also seem to be an illustration of what America is allegedly about anyway. Right? That it's helping to create this more just and more perfect nation. I am much more skeptical. I'm incredibly skeptical. I'm skeptical of all of it. I'm skeptical of diversity, because what does that actually mean? We live in an age now where diversity has been so diminished that as a word, it means everything and nothing. You know, if we say even inclusion, including of what? Do you mean you have 10 white people, you throw in 6 people of color or 4 people of color or 1 person of color, and now they've been included, therefore everything is going to change in the entire organization? Like, it just feels to me that these terms have been co-opted in ways that give people the window dressing or the appearance of doing something, and they really haven't done anything. And nothing has actually changed. And so I'm always asking, why do all these things feel so permanent? You know, and I feel like it's because when real change does come, it's disruptive and it's uncomfortable. And so you can't have things be exactly as they always are and not have any ripples in your life, and also yet want to live in a more just society, because those two things are absolutely incompatible.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, and that's why I say that Black Women Stitch is it's a blackity black project from the beginning to the end to the middle. You know, it's not about making the sewing world a better place. I'm not trying to be the #1 sewing podcast of all podcasts. I'm working with a very specific charge, and that is to celebrate, recognize, honor, support, and defend Black women, girls, and femmes who are enjoying this particular ancestral craft. And it's a pretty simple kind of mission, but it's also not one that could be put under the umbrella of diversity and inclusion. And I don't want it to be, because I'm not seeking to be included anywhere. I have had enough of that. I've had, you know, as many Black folks working in predominantly white institutions or environments, you know, I'm not interested in having a seat at the table. I've had seats at lots of tables. And now for this thing, I wanted to build my own table. And that has made all the difference.
Love it. And that's why I love this group too, because this group is gonna keep it 100. You know, they're gonna be 100. They're gonna be their authentic selves, and I welcome that. And I like that the thing you mentioned about disruption, and how, like, if it really is change, it might feel disruptive, right? So that might be the indication that you really are doing something, right? Yes. People need to be able to exist within that tension, because if the tension doesn't exist, then it might be an indication that you're not really doing anything.
Yeah, like how can you can't have the status quo and change. Like how do you do that? You can't have things be exactly as they are and then say you want things to be different and better. Either you want to be different and better, or you want them to remain the same. You cannot want both things, and there's no way to work toward both. You have to choose. And if you choose the path of disruption, you are going to make you're going to make a lot of other people, I might not be uncomfortable. I'm not made uncomfortable in any way by these conversations, but there are lots of people who are.
Mhm.
And because those folks tend to be gatekeepers, it keeps the doors of these conversations closed, or that they only happen in a certain way.
Go ahead, chime in, Will. And I want to get back to Sahara. I want Sahara to answer.
Okay.
that. But Will, you
I want to say what I think is important with what Lisa is saying is that there needs to be space for both, for both those who are like disrupting and those who are like, you know, and it not just like be space for them, because, you know, there is always space for them. But I think what's more healthy is that they respect each other's work.
Yes.
Because we need each other.
Yes.
And like, you know, like at this point in my life, I know what I can't do. And I know that I can't live a life that's like exclusive. Like it's just, you know what I mean? Like it's just Black people and that's it. Like I just, in my own, like, not I can't, because I don't, that's not in me right now.
Yes.
And so, but I respect what's in her, honestly. Like I really like, oh yeah, and I feel it. Like I know that that's a thing. I could get there, you know, if more things don't work for me,
yeah,
then I could probably grow to that place, because it's like, you know what, now it's just self-preservation.
It's not even a destination. It's not even a destination. It's not at all, because that requires hierarchical thinking, right? And that's like, well, you could be at point A or you could be at point Z, and if you're at point
just
Z,
your journey.
It's exactly, it's where you are. And it's also about a particular set of activities, right? That for me, I really love sewing, maybe in the same way that you love running or have come to love running. But I realized that when I was doing it in community, in the groups that I was in before, that it was harmful to me. And what I wanted was, I said that what I realized, and this was after, you know, all of the stuff with August 2017 and just some terrible reactions with some of the white women that I had been sewing with for years. And I said, you know what? I do not want to exchange my humanity in order to do something that I loved. And what I realized is that I had gone from pet to threat with those people. And it made me embarrassed, because I was like, wait a minute, who do they think I was all this time? I've been the same person. But, you know, when I started being more vocal, thank you, sweetie. When I started being more vocal in my support and work with Black women, with Black Lives Matter Charlottesville, and with other like just anti-racist activities, that was something they couldn't get behind. And so I was like, you know what? Either I keep going with this and harm myself, or I say, let me build what I need. Why can't I do something I love with people who will actually affirm my whole self? And that is where this comes from. So it's not so much a separatist project in the sense that, you know, in that way, as much as it is an affirming process for a project for Black women. I guess that's what I would add. But I'm curious about Sahara's answer to your question, because I think that I was picking up on that as well, Will, because she was saying that she concentrates a lot on Black women in her art, and a lot of her work is motivated by the work of Black women and the experiences of Black women, but she's going to expand that now to include the African-American community as a whole. So I was curious about that as well. So, I mean, but I'm not the moderator. So, and my again, as I told you, my non-work rate has not covered me moderating. So I'm a hush and let Sarah do his job.
You have made that plain, and you know this is gonna be jazz. So
I'm never gonna get invited to this event again.
No, you coming back. You know, if you want to, it's on you.
Oh well, yeah. Okay, we have to check. We have to check that rate situation. We'll see.
We're going to turn it over to Sahara to answer that particular question, and then we'll continue to kind of like iterate and improvise through this conversation. But Sahara, definitely want to hear about, like, you know, delving a little deeper on that, expanding, you know, your work to a broader kind of subject matter.
Yeah, so I think that with my work, it kind of starts with taking a step back, even thematically, and looking at my my initial interest in art, which was about portraiture and about bodies and how the body functions, and looking at the mentality and the physicality and how those work together to create experience. And so I think that when tapping into more, I guess, quote unquote, serious topics when in my art, and not just focusing on the surface level in terms of my interest in the body as a structure,
Mhm.
and looking at Black womanhood, I want to expand that narrative and focusing on how our bodies are related. And so how we work together as bodies and how we interact as bodies, and how we are both different and similar. And I think that these similarities in looking at both Black men and women, but also looking at a larger scale in terms of the BIPOC community, and looking at ways in which we can come together through art making, is something that is very important to me, especially when I feel like now, just given the certain escalating of events that have happened in just the past year, that the BIPOC community is just very divided, as it seems like right now. And so I think that just exploring more themes that bring us together is something that I feel like will bring in something on a more personal level to audience members, in terms of focusing and looking and shifting perspectives on ourselves and of others. And so going back to exploring specifically the Black male narrative, I am definitely taking interest in looking at also the fashion perspective, and looking at, per se, the dandelion, or looking at how it relates to what we're seeing with the exploitation of Black male bodies in terms of the media, and just these different things, and looking at how we play a certain role in entertainment, um, and also how that contrasts, and how we are then put in the system in which we grow up, and when we are endangered, and then we're put into the mass incarceration. And so how we are kind of shifting these two different directions of being highlighted, being exposed to a larger audience, or white audience, and in terms of how our creativity and our musicality is being used, versus how we're looking at the other side of it, in terms of how we are still, there is still prejudice, there is still Black bodies being used to feed into a dark web and a dark cycle. And so I'm really wanting to focus on this contrast in the Black male perspective. So those are the things that I'm currently thinking about for my art.
Got it. So there's a question in the chat specifically for you. So I do want to address that, and it kind of builds off of what Lisa talked about the work. And I'd love to hear, we'll talk about this too, but the work, how does it contribute to your whole self and your whole sense of self? Because I think that's part of the Ascension concept. It's like doing things that make you whole and feel whole, right? And I think you don't necessarily, the composition of your group or your work can be different and still help you to feel whole if you have that level of control. And the issue is really like this wholeness and steering from this brokenness. So if you could talk about that personally for you, like how your art, contributes to you personally, and like, how does it, how is it adjacent to that subject or aligned with that subject matter?
Yes. I believe that my art, or I guess being an artist, is really about taking in what you see and putting in, examining that and self-reflecting. And then this is kind of the product that happens when you go through this process of observation and self-reflection and then production. And so in my artistry, it's always been about looking towards myself and how I see myself and how others see me. And then it became more about how are these things applicable to others like me or others that are different than me. And so I think that even though I'm looking at more of a different scope, it still definitely is about that initial what I am seeing and what I am reading or what happens just throughout my ordinary day and really just seeing kind of the mechanics or the kind of artistry of what seems ordinary. And so I am deeply just grateful in terms of how I am able to paint and use art as a way to express. And in terms of my performative work, it is much more, it's a slightly different approach in terms of self-reflection that I feel like is more of a initial reaction to things that can feel happy and things that can feel devastating or frustrating. And just movement is something that I do that just creates just a better sense of self and a more self-awareness of just how being in a place of ceremony in terms of when you're listening to music and building that kind of emotion, and then a place of just letting go or recentering after going through these motions. And I do this every day. I dance every day, and it can be a confidence builder. It can be something that I just need a second to myself and just take a half an hour to just feel, and just feeling is something that is very important to me. Because sometimes as someone who is introverted, I don't always just feel out and out with everybody. I often do that just with my dancing. So those are, it's definitely and performing is definitely something that I feel like should be feeding you as much as it is feeding others.
Love it. Thank you for that. I got the chills. I almost got the tears while you were talking, because I'm big on that mind, body, spirit connection. And when you have all of those things working in unison, and people always want to leave out the body, and that interconnectedness is so powerful. And I think that, for Black people in general, especially those who are, descendants of slaves, that was part of what got cut off from us, like our ability, our movement, mobility, and our ability to be free in movement. And when you cut that off, that took a part of our soul away. So how we materialize ourselves in society and we reconnect to that body piece, it unlocks so many things. So I see Will's video went off, but I got a question. Oh, there he is. He's back. Will, I want you to tackle this about, the whole self and the running and how, the connection to the whole self, if you would also.
Yeah, that's really important for me. I grew up really religious, or came to religion. I think I grew up religious, but it wasn't forced on me. And so I don't really look at it like I grew up religious. But then I came to this place where I was a young man, about 18, about 19, somewhere in there, where in the barbershop, it was all about religion. Muslims, Jehovah's Witness, everything came through there. And so you had to really study, you had to really do your work. If you wanted to be in these conversations, because they was going to chew you up if you ain't know what you was talking about. If you ain't do your diligence, you was getting slammed. And so I grew to understand a lot of religious stuff. But in my religious experience, it never dealt with my body. Like it was never any expression with my body. And so it just never felt good to just sit. It just never, like, that just doesn't feel good. But then when I started running, I started having these experiences that was deep and powerful, where when I exhausted myself or I pushed myself, like I would cry, man, and I would have like these emotional kind of breakthroughs that I didn't know how to access previously. And so running became really powerful to me, and it connected me to myself in a more holistic way. You get older as a young man, you get older, and once competitive sports is over, you don't really have a way to like really get your body. It's something about like exercise, just the word exercise, and exercise, like to take something out of you. And so like to me, when you exercise, and I tell my kids when we work out and they tired, it's like, give the universe that energy and it's going to give you something back. And it's just a fact. Like when you exhaust yourself, and when you feel like there's nothing else there, you have like reached the capacity, and now you like have a new capacity, so to speak. And so I think that saying to my children, like, yo, give the universe that energy and it's going to give you back strength. Like you will be stronger from this exertion of energy. And so I started looking at run that way. And it became, and I wasn't good at meditating, honestly. Like prayer wasn't really like I could pray and use words, but it didn't really work for me in ways that it felt like other people said it worked for them. I don't know if they were fronting, but it just didn't feel as connected as now what run does for me. And it's more of a moving meditation where I can't just sit still and just meditate. I can do that better now because of run, but I needed run to like introduce me to like meditation in a different way. And so I get out there, man, now, and I beat my feet, and it really does something for me, man. It really helps me to think, process through thoughts better. It helps me to tap into strength that I think is necessary to be your higher self, back to ascend. Like, it's hard to be your higher self, man, especially when this world has effed you up the way that it has. You know what I mean? Like this Black existence, they made it really hard for us to reach health in a way that we should have. Like there have been so many roadblocks in our generations before us that have made it really hard for us to experience health. So much has been kept from us. And so to be Black and want to be like making this world better than when you found it, you need tools, like you need ways to like help get yourself to your higher self. Yeah. And so run has just been a tool for me. It sounds like dance has always been a tool for Sahara. And I'm not sure what Lisa's moving tool is, but it sounds like, I mean, all of us are artists and creatives. Yeah. And so I think what really is happening here is just, we are using our creativity to make this world better, and create spaces where we feel safe and where people like us can come and get the same sort of experience from what we're doing that we have gotten. And so like we went down to Virginia Beach, and just that marathon experience, I know how powerful it was in my life to cross the finish line. And I purposely attached like a new self to it. I purposely attached a more healthy self to it. I purposely decided like I was going to get over some stuff. And not in some like unhealthy way, like I hate that stuff, but just like I'm learning enough to where I can take like a bold step and be better than I used to be. And so that line was just like, all right, here go a new version of yourself. You get to start over. And so that's what run has been for me. And so like taking other Black men specifically. And we had a Black sister who ran her first marathon 2 weekends ago. And so for me, it was just like, how can I get others up, more of us to experience that, man? And we had 5, AE, Paul, Ball, Cat, Wes, specifically, and Coach Marcus Dixon. We had 6 first-time marathoners running Virginia Beach. And all of them had this experience that they really can't explain. Like, they still haven't processed through it yet. But it's something about moving. It's something about breaking yourself. It's something about like people being there to support you and like encourage you to continue and then get you across that line.
Yeah.
It's just an experience, man. And I think really brings community together. And so I think it's holistic in that way. I think that it is what Ascension should be, because you got guys who didn't know where stuff was going to come from. And they just stayed with running, like they committed to that. And now their life is in a much better place because they had one thing to commit to help them get through all of those struggles that happened through COVID.
Right.
Yeah. I love that so much. Just thank you.
To Lisa, and I'm gonna turn it to you, but I want to give you a little bit of framing, and you go wherever you want to go with it. Ma says, yeah, running is therapeutic. Whatever you say, I want to at some point for you to talk about this intersection between the workplace and Black people in the work.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So go where you want to go, but
sure.
That at some point also. We got about
I see our time at 12 minutes or so.
About 12 minutes left, so want to leave a little space for everyone and maybe to do like a kind of a closeout. So folks, keep that in mind. But it's on you, Lisa.
Thank you so much. I really love what Will was saying. And as you were speaking, I was thinking this is true for me in sewing as well. Of course, it's not a physical release in the same way, but it is a kinetic activity because it's, you use your body to sew, you use your body to dance and create, you use your body to work as well as to give yourself leisure. And I think that running is incredibly powerful because of the things that Sarad mentioned about Black mobility, Black hypervisibility, how, and Will, you made a really excellent point that I hadn't thought of so much, that beyond competitive sports, like in high school, if one was on a team or something, what kind of physical activity do adults have access to regularly? And unless you're the type of person that's gonna, pay or can afford to pay monthly for a gym membership, and you might pay for a while, then you go and you don't go. That running, if you are physically able and capable of doing it, is low cost. You can access it at any time and almost at any place. And it can be a form of active meditation. And so I loved all of those things that you were saying about that. And it connected so well to Sahara, speaking about the kinetic properties of dance for her as a meditation. One of the things that Black Women Stitch has been for me that I've really enjoyed is that it's just an unapologetic space to do something you love with people who will affirm you. And that's essentially it. And I think it's because we are so accustomed to workplace environments that might be tolerant of Black folks, but they are not designed with Black people's comfort and feelings in mind. They are designed with white people's comfort and feelings in mind, and anybody else can just get in where you fit in. And so one of the things that I often I like people to think about is, of course, thinking about their vocabulary, thinking about language and refraining from euphemisms, etc. But one of the things that I think is important is to claim the space for ourselves and to let people know that the highest ambition, my highest ambition, I can't speak for everybody else, but the highest ambition is not integration. And I think that there's been such a misapplication of this idea that it trickles down to hearing sayings like, oh, acting white, which is a phrase I absolutely hate. And whenever anybody utters it in my presence, I say, since when did white people become so great that people want to act like them? Like, what is emulatory about that? But that's what happens when you confuse wanting the resources that people are given with somehow being like the people themselves. They just got the resources because, you know, laws were shifted in their favor, not because their skin color gives them some special power, you know? So that's something that I really enjoyed about Black Women Stitch, is not having to do that. It like to have a place where you don't code switch. And then that also goes back to the idea about workplace and how do we create environments that are truly, or how do institutions create environments that are truly inclusive? And if they want to do that, they can do that with money. That's it, money. Pay people, pay them well, pay them high, pay them exorbitantly, pay, you know, look at your own pay scales and pay charts and see what your highest exec is making versus the person who's in the lowest position. Look at all the Black folks in your organization, not just the upper ranking ones. Look to see, you know, like, what, when you mean equity, what is your measure of equity? What is your measure of, you know, knowing that Black women only make what, 6 cents or 5 cents for every dollar a white man makes? Like, these are things that can be corrected if people had the will to do so. You just pay Black women more money. That would make up for generations of us getting cheated.
Right.
But yeah, so I don't know if that really answers the question. And also this idea of how I act the same everywhere I go, even at work. I do act this is me exactly. This is me in my house. This is me at a faculty meeting. This is me, like, just general. I did a workshop a couple of weeks ago for a workshop for work. And it was talking with K-12 teachers about anti-racist history and how they could, you know, do these different programs, et cetera, et cetera. And I was talking about the difficulty of doing anti-racist work if we center the feelings of white people. And I said, I don't care about white people's feelings. I don't. White people's feelings have too long mattered more than Black people's lives. And as Claudia Rankin says in her book, Citizen, she says that because white men cannot police their imaginations, Black people are dying. And it's when you think about this, you know, I just love that line of the book. The book is fantastic. But my point is, I just feel like all of this is past time. All of this is stuff that, you know, and that's why I get so impatient. You know, the idea that that Black folks need to explain to the majority how racism works and what it looks like. And I'm like, no, you don't. I'm convinced that people know exactly what's happening and that they're just fucking with me. That's what I think.
You know, when we planned this conversation, we just wanted to make sure that we didn't have any FCC regulations that we were going to
y'all didn't tell me that.
No, we found out that we weren't. And Zoom, you could say whatever you want to say.
I told you this is how I am normally.
Okay.
I told you. Ask anybody who's been my student. They'll be like, yeah, that's her.
That's what we want.
That's what she will say that. She'll also say things like, why did you write this paper for me? What have I ever done to hurt you like that? Because this is not good work.
Love it. Love it. I do want to lift up a couple of things that I think you did offer some people some tangible things, like about compensation, like, and like, you know, African-American women in particular are the most educated people in America, yet that you're saying that they get, like, I don't know the data you listed, like 6 cents on the dollar. So it's like,
we get cheated. We get cheated. That was a bad word. We get, we're underpaid consistently across the board in all professions, like, just as a matter of principle. It's as if it's funny because it makes it seem like this is not because the system is broken. This is because the system is working. And like, this is why we have these things that feel like, this is what makes injustice feel so permanent, you know? Mm-hmm. Like when you look back at some of the demands that students at UVA were advocating for back in 1963, a living wage was one of those things. That was one of their demands. In 1963, 65, and here we are, and they just managed to get there. Mm-hmm. That's like 50 some odd years.
Yeah, and I think that connects to the other subtitle of this conversation about rewriting the code. Like, we have to, like, it systematically works. So we have to rewrite the code so that the algorithm works and has impact in a more healthy, so, I always talk about pathological algorithms and also algorithms that bring about health. And we're talking about healthy algorithms. So I want to shift to Sahara. Sahara, I'm going to give you a minute and a half. Will, I'm going to give you a minute and a half. And, Will, you can close us out and give us our final word for the day. So Sahara, whatever you have to share, especially with this connection between workplace and a minute and a half, I'm going to turn it to Will, and then we'll close up.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely, I guess now that I'm currently in college, and then just my current, I guess, understanding of race and the system, it's, I think, a little different since I am attending an art school versus a conventional university. But we still see Black people are still definitely the minority here, and how Black art is being judged, or in our school critiques, and what is looked at when we're looking at Black art. Race is definitely something that is avoided in those conversations, even though thematically it is oftentimes one of the essential parts of the work, and what is being put down to the color, down to the movement, and down to the composition. All of those things are influenced ultimately by the theme. And so we have this kind of silence in the room when we're talking about race-based work, and how both students and teachers alike fail to kind of bring in race into the conversation when discussing the work. And so that, I definitely think for my first year was something that was challenging, and I had not become aware of that was a common thing until following over the summer, where actually there was, I believe, like a small or not a documentary, but more like a short film that I think happened around 2014 that discussed these same things, that was made by RISD students. And so this has been a continuous thing for a while now here at the university, which is quite disappointing. But I think now I'm definitely having a better experience. Both of my professors have been people of color, but I have yet to see anybody within the Black community who is working around me that I can really talk to. Of course, there are some clubs, but yeah, it's definitely, I think I would have hoped for a more direct approach in terms of, or at least a better perhaps formula, or just words of clarity before the conversation starts. So everybody has something in mind when it's not about, oh, you can't say A, B, and C, in order for us to have a good critique on this work. When you're critiquing, it's not about right and wrong, it's about your personal experience. And so I don't think that you should be afraid to share your personal experience of the work, because honestly, whether or not you are a Black member and your experience of work, that is valuable information for the artist.
All right. Ben told me we got a couple minutes. We can go over a couple minutes, but I want to send it back to Ben. But Will, I promised you, and you got some chatter in the room about you taking off your trench coat because it's cold in there from James Dow. So Will, take us home, and then we'll turn it back over to Ben, and we'll close out. I want to thank everybody for coming out today. I didn't get my Clubhouse ready. We're going to extend this conversation on Clubhouse, but be on the lookout of extending this conversation with these people. Connect with them on Instagram, all their social, so that you can continue to communicate with them.
And Will and Sahara should put their Patreons, their Cash Apps, their Act Blues, whatever they got to get people to give you money digitally, put it in the chat. Because there's people here who really want to support us. So I like all kinds of support, but money is my favorite type.
Lisa is a beast.
All right. Will, take us out. Thank you, Lisa.
Hey, Lisa, we need you to come out and run these hills with us, man, because you are goddamn.
I know it don't look like it, but I'm 51 years old. I know it's like, look
what
amazing.
Talking about? I plan on running
I got
at 80.
50-year-old knees too.
I
ain't got them Megan Stallion knees. I can't be doing all the running and all the hippity hoppity.
You can come and walk with us. Come on out and walk
some uniforms or something like that. Like that's something. Let me do my in my field of influence. The thing I'm really good at.
Okay. Well, I would love to see you come walk with us because I want to hear you. I want to have a conversation with you outside.
Look at Karen Murray stunting on me saying she's 54 and she gets out there. Karen.
There you go.
That's
Miss Susan is a beast. We got
out of all of y'all. Y'all keep doing it so I don't have to. Come on.
Okay, we got you. We're gonna hold it down. So Brad, what am I saying, bro? 1 minute
final closing comments, and then we'll go to the next thing.
Yeah. Prolific, man. I really, it hasn't just been impactful for everybody else. I think what we have to do is really create like our own, like we got to be bold enough to make our own spaces, man. And not even just like some people could look at Run as just like this just hobby thing. But I think what you were saying earlier about like Sahara and mining for our talents, like our talents is where our gifts is where our money is. And so, like scripture says, a man's gift makes room for him and brings him before great men. And so like, it's imperative that we help our children like find what's there, like whatever it is, like what is there. Sahara has found hers, Lisa has found hers, and I found mine before, and then I just found another one. Like I feel like Run is a whole new one to like now create a new lane where you can like live in a way that allows you to feel free, to where like going to work isn't laborsome, but you can create your own situation that allows you to like really take care of not just yourself, but create space for other people to be valued and impacted in healthy ways, and not just monetarily, but spiritually and physically taken care of, but also creates economic empowerment for people. So, that's what I think is important. Like, how do we make these things into like some solid infrastructure so that we can answer one of our major issues as Black people. I listen to a lot of the OGs talk, and they always talk about how these young boys don't want to go to work. But I'll never hear the OGs talking about how they let these young boys down and then create work for them. And so, I think that it's imperative that we create spaces that these young people can come home that have matriculated through the system and have been done wrong, but they have a space where they can come to and feel safe, and that'll feed them in more ways than one. So I think that's our job. And how do we figure that out? Like, how do we monetize these situations that we are so passionate about so that they can feed other people?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it. Beyond my expectations. I'm glad that you all were on. Seems like the cruise is sticking with us online. So thank everybody who hung on for this. I would say let's do this. Let's hashtag Ascension 2021 if you want to continue this conversation on your socials, on your Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And then like if y'all want to follow up, we can all follow that hashtag online and continue the conversation. Didn't get my Clubhouse in order in time, so let's do Ascension 2021, hashtag Ascension 2021, and maybe Tom wants to do something. Ben is back on. Appreciate everybody. thanks
Thank
for
you.
having, yeah.
Yeah, thank you all. I appreciate you challenging the limits of our expectations, especially you as well, Lisa, and the best practices as we are most certainly on a journey as an organization ourselves. So maybe some of our community members here on the call can help us make up the difference. Lisa, you're already one step ahead of us putting your information in the chat, but Sahara, Will, Sarad, if you all want to link where people can support you or the projects that you're a part of, we're going to hang out here for like 2 or 3 minutes with the slides and some music on. So if folks want to hang out and do that right now, do so, and we'll be looking out for Ascension 2020 as well, 2021. Sorry. Thanks so much.
Y'all are amazing. Thank y'all. This
Thank
was
y'all.
fun.